or whatever you're listening to. For example, you're listening to a podcast, like, you should be actively listening. You have to observe a lot, absorb things in order to interpret in a potential way. And speaking, whatever. Hello, good morning everyone. How's it going? All cool? So today we'll be looking at the strategies, like, being an aspirant, how do I approach English as a subject, okay? Whereas the problem is English is not only a subject, it is a language, okay? We have to look at it in that perspective as well. All your Intelligence Bureau exam or your CDS exam or AFCAT or your CAPF in paper 2 CAPF, so they'll be testing your English knowledge, just not only the top, okay? We have different portions, like, we have parts of speech, and then, we have different topics inside the portion. Whereas, like, you're looking at the pattern, you will have error spotting, like, closed tests, para jumbles you'll have, and you will have idioms and phrases and synonyms and antonyms. Only grammar is not going to help. Today, we'll be looking at the detailed strategy and techniques, like how to improve your mastery in English, like, how to build your English vocabulary and then improvise and okay. Today we'll be looking at the strategy, and then I'll unveil some tips for you guys. All right. So follow with me. Unveiling savvy strategies for English enthusiasts. Okay, and introducing myself, I'm Ganeeth Kumar. I'll be teaching your English subject over here in SAVDA. So with that being said, we'll start. Table of contents. Today in this class, we'll be discussing an introduction, how to approach the subject English and how to look it as a language and learn it in that perspective as well. Importance and understanding the language. All right, and the next one is objectives and goals. In order to have an upper hand in English, in order to master the language or the subject like English, what should I do? What are the objectives and then the goals I should set? And what are the objectives that I should have ticked? Okay, we'll be discussing that as well. List of objectives and goals to be mastered. And then, sir, fine, I have a knowledge about English as a subject and a language, and I know what should be mastered and how to master it. Today we'll be discussing the strategy as well. And the 4-pillar concept is what I believe in path of communication or in the way of communication. So I'll be discussing that as well for you guys. And also abstain from. What is the meaning of abstain from? Means to consciously avoid or refrain from something. You shouldn't do something. Okay. Being an aspirant, I'll tell you what to do and what not to do in order to prepare for your exam in the perspective of English. All right. And reality check. I'll be telling you what will be your daily homework and everything. So we'll be discussing that as well in this clip. And conclusion. Finally, I'll just give you a summary. So, hold tight officers. Today we'll be looking at a new perception and we'll be introduced to English today. Alright. Officers, let's get this started. Alright. Pay attention, focus, and try to learn something which is going to be productive in your life. Not only in your subject, but else in your life as clear? So, introduction. Now, we are going to have an understanding about English as a subject and a language as well. How it is going to help you, not only in your academics, but then it is also going to boost your career as well. So, we'll look at the language aspect. Global communication. English connects people worldwide, fostering understanding between speakers of different language. Imagine a person who's from Uttar Pradesh or Bihar or Jharkhand or Madhya Pradesh, somewhere from the north. And then imagine a person who's in the northeast, for example, Manipur or Mizoram or Tripura, or else for that sake, take a person from the south, Tamilian or a Telugu guy or a Kannada guy or a Malayalam guy, Mallu guy. I'm not really sure about the names, what they call, but still, yeah. How do you connect, like, with various people, like, from different regions and everything? Like, English is going to help you. Global communication, not only talking about India, even if you move to Western countries, English will be a common language, widely spoken there, okay? So, English is not only going to help you in your academics, also it is going to give help you in your proper communication and other things. Academic language. Imagine you're studying history, okay, or else you're studying polity in Lakshmikant, all right? Without the language English, like, it is really difficult for you to learn what polity in terms of Lakshmikant. If you're using Lakshmikant, if you're not having a good English or good vocabulary knowledge, it is really difficult for us to understand polity, which is in English. And talking about non-English speakers, like, the Hindi medium or Telugu medium or respective native language medium, like, this is not really for you guys, okay? But still, if you really want to understand and then approach it in English way, for example, I have students asking me, sir, you told, like, you have to study in polity, you have to have a good knowledge about English in order to study polity in Lakshmikant. Whereas I studied in Hindi version, I don't have any problem. If you're sticking to Hindi or some other book, that's totally fine. Whereas this video is wholly and soulfully for, like, those who want to improve their English, and then this is a strategy to, like, approach your English as a language and a subject. All right. So in history, polity, economics, or geography, whatever subject you take, English will be there printed, and then all the sources of these materials will be in your English only, because it is an academic language as well. Okay, so now learning vocabulary and grammar is not only going to help you in your academics as well, of course it is going to help you in various other things. All right. So career boost. Imagine a person with poor English skills, and imagine a person who can connect with a flow, like, having an eloquent kind of speech. Okay. So it is of course going to make a difference from the ordinary person. And what I'm trying to say is that, imagine you're an officer in next 2 years or within a year, and then whereas your colleague, like, the officer, your friend, okay, he can't speak or converse in English, whereas your English is really good. Of course, that will make a difference. All right. So of course, it is going to give you a career boost as well. And cultural bridge. Imagine a person who is from Australia or from Senegal, Africa. Like, we have different culture. We share a different culture. But then one thing we also, like, share in common is that English. Okay, it connects people widely and globally. All right. Cultural bridge. English facilitates the next exchange of global culture, including literature, music, and movies. Right. Tech language. Imagine, we are in the, the century of, imagine we are in the century of technology. Okay, technology is all boomed, and then it's everywhere here. All right, look at the board; it's all digitalized. It's a monitor I'm having. I'm not even using a blackboard. In this world of technology, without having an English knowledge or without knowing English, like, it's really difficult for us to understand what is this AI, artificial intelligence, and various other things. All right, so it is your tech language as well. So learning English is really important, and then it's really going to be a life-changing skill for you. All right. Tech language. In technology, English is the dominant language of software, programming, and innovation. So these are the various aspects, like, which is going to be beneficial if you're having a mastery over English or if you're having an upper hand in English. All right. Whereas our main motto is, like, to focus on academics. Okay, it's being academic languages. Okay, with that perspective also, we'll look at this further. So, gain a clarity as an aspirant before you start your preparation. Okay, initially we were all students, right? We went to primary school, we went to school, and then high school, and then finally joined a college or a university. We were, like, college students. Still, we were students, and now imagine you're all sitting and then prepared, and then you guys are aspirants. You're no more students, you're aspirants, you're graduates, right? And also many people who will be watching it, those who are not aspirants, I'm really sorry about it, but still a lot of aspirants will be watching it, right? So you're all aspirants. Okay, initially you were students, and later you had your transition to an aspirant, and tomorrow you will be an officer, right? Of course, tomorrow you will be an officer. And to have this transition from student to aspirant, I don't know, it all happened in a flow, right? Whereas being an aspirant, and then you have to transit, or you have to, like, switch over to an officer ranking, right? You will be an officer. So that transition will need a lot of clarity. Okay, you should have a clarity how to approach your exam, how to clear this, how to get the status of an officer, right? Now I'm an aspirant. How will I next move forward to be an officer, right? So we should need a clarity. So let's get some clarity over here. Clear? So objectives and goals. Okay, these are all the topics that I want you to master. Okay, these are all the important topics that I have to master, that I will ask you to master. Whereas these two are really important if you're an aspirant. All right, grammar and vocabulary is really important as an aspirant. Whatever the exam you're preparing, I don't care. Okay, if you're preparing for AFCAT or CAPF or CDS or NDA or for IB Security Assistant or IBACIO2, I don't give a damn about it, but make sure that you are really focusing on your grammar and vocabulary. Why? Your question paper is mostly, like, filled with all your grammar and vocabulary and understanding of the language. All right. So by the end, if you're telling that, sir, being an aspirant, I have mastered the language of English, then I'll ask you one question simply, like, is your grammar and vocabulary strong? And if your answer is yes, then you're good to go as an aspirant. All right. Whereas with grammar and vocabulary, you will be able to clear the first tier exam or else the first level of exam. All right. Whereas when you go to your SSB or for any other interview panel which is conducted by the central government or your state government maybe as well, you need communication, fluency and pronunciation. And if, for example, in your paper 2, level 2 examination, like CAPF paper, your intelligence bureau tier 2 examination and everything, they'll ask you to write as well. So punctuation is also really necessary. For your tier 1 exam, grammar and vocabulary is really important. Whereas when you compare, when you're looking forward to your upcoming exams like your SSB or else your paper 2 exams or tier 2 exams, then communication, fluency, pronunciation, punctuations are really important in order to perform well in your interview. And now I'll be discussing the 4 pillars. Okay, what are the 4 pillars of a language or a communication, which I believe is that reading. One should know how to read, and one should know how to write, and one should have a clarity what he is listening to, active listening. Okay, he should understand what the speaker is speaking, being a listener, good listener, and he has to be a good speaker as well. All right. So reading, writing, listening, and speaking are the 4 pillars of this communication. Okay. So you have to really have an upper hand while you're reading. Whatever you read with clarity. Okay. Try to understand, interpret, and then read. And whatever you're writing, make sure that you're presenting it in a proper way. Do not make any grammatical errors and everything. Okay. It's fine to make errors initially, but make sure your writings are error free. Okay. Clear? And listening. Whatever the speaker is trying to tell, or whatever you're hearing, or whatever you're listening to, for example, you're watching an interview on YouTube, or else, for example, you're watching a podcast, or you're listening to a podcast, you should be actively listening. You have to observe a lot, not in order to be an officer in the coming days. You have to listen properly and carefully absorb things in order to interpret in a potential way. And speaking, whatever you're talking, it should be very clear, and then you have to convey whatever you're trying to convey, whatever you're trying to think. Okay, you should have a flow while speaking, and then it shouldn't look really awkward. All right. So these 4 pillars you have to really improvise. So now you will ask me, how do I improve it? Okay, and I'll be discussing some strategy how you will be improving your reading, writing, and listening and speaking. Okay, reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Clear? So first one is your input, and second one is thoughts. Third one is output, and fourth one is your consistency. Okay. Once again, I repeat, the first is input, thoughts, output, and consistency. This is the method I used to improve my English. Okay. When I was thinking that my English is really below average, it's really basic. I can't even say 2 or 3 words together in a flow. When I was in that state, I used to follow this strategy, and I hope it will help you being an aspirant. All right. Let us discuss those 4 strategies in depth. Input. First of all, in order to master a language or a subject like English, you should have an input. How do you get your input? Whatever you can read it in English, your written materials, the newspapers which you read, or else the books you're reading. Okay, make sure that you're reading it in English. Okay, take it in English. And the things which you're watching, this is for your reading, and this is your watching. Whatever you watch, example, a current affair news channels or current affair news and interviews, okay, famous personalities or ex-officers, okay, whatever the interviews you're watching, or movies, any documentary, anything related to, political nature or political genre, or whatever the movies you're trying to watch or you would like to watch. Okay, make sure that whatever you're watching it in English again. And whatever you're listening, songs and podcasts, whatever you're listening to, make sure that you're listening in English. Right? Why? Because you need a lot of input. You should need a lot of words to know. First of all, for example, if I'm talking to you, for example, or else leave that alone. If you're watching news, okay, for example, the anchor or the news reader, if she is taking she or he, if he is using a new word, you should be able to understand it. So in order to learn a language, first you should have a good input. And Second, thoughts. Okay, whatever you're thinking, train your mind to think in English. For example, you're sitting in your hall and then you want to turn on the fan, but you're feeling lazy. Try to think in English that, oh, I'm feeling too lazy to switch on the fan. Okay, just try to think in English. Why? If you're thinking in English, then you don't have to, every time you don't have to think in your native language and then you have to translate it and then you speak it. Okay, and also like, while you're trying to talk in a flow, then you will have a breakage of the flow. You won't have a flow. You'll have an interrupted flow. Why? Because your thoughts are not clear. I mean, words in your mind, consciously you're unable to talk. Okay, and subconsciously also you have a lot of words, but you're unable to use it in your conscious state. That's why I'm asking you to train your mind to think in English in order to have a flow while you're talking. All right. And finally, your output. How do you train your tongue to talk in English? Okay, if for example you're a Hindi speaker, okay, your tongue is really good. You have trained your tongue to converse in Hindi, whereas in order to converse in English, then what you have to do? You have to train your tongue to speak or converse in English. Okay, syllables, the words, whatever you're talking. Okay, you have to make sure that you're pronouncing it right. Even in initially, in initial cases, it's totally fine if you're making any mistakes, but make sure that you're talking or conversing in English in order to train your tongue. And consistency, okay, this is such an important thing that I would like to introduce it to you. Consistency means keeping up the hard work, doing it regularly. Until you achieve your goal, you will be consistently doing it, and that's what it means. And you have to have this consistent rapport. Okay, you have to always push yourself. It's not about a week or a month that you will learn this language. Okay, you have to at least push it for 3 months in order to see a productive change. Okay, repeat the whole process without giving up. All right. Class, I believe the Josh is really good or high, and I'm really sorry if it is low. Abstain from. What do you mean by abstain from? Stop doing which you like to do. Okay, you should stop doing. You should refrain from. Perfectionism. As I told you earlier, you don't have to be really perfect. Whatever you're talking, you shouldn't bother whether if it is in a good grammar or a bad grammar. Initially, you should start talking in English. Okay, do not try to be perfect. Avoid perfectionism initially. Later, you can be perfect or whatever you want. Being introverted. Imagine you're going to be an officer. Being an aspirant, you'll be an officer within a span of years or within a couple of months as well. Okay. Whereas, imagine if you have this quality, an introvert, you don't like to converse with people, you don't like to listen to what others are saying. That's really bad. Okay. And even that is going to spoil your English. Why? Because the question paper is really tough first of all, and then for example if you're having a comprehension and it's really hard to interpret what the passage is conveying it to you, and all the options are just reflecting your answer, you don't know what answer or which answer is the correct one. Clear? So in order to do that, you have to have an upper hand or mastery in English. And how do you do that? Being an introvert? No, of course not. So try to talk to various people and then try to grab the sense of their language if you find if their language is really good. All right. And miscellaneous thoughts. Okay. And don't hold any miscellaneous thoughts. And for example, our first priority is to improve our English. Do not try to focus on the accent. For example, my friend is really good in American accent. I'm really good at British accent, and what kind of an accent you're talking, and all those fancy words like vibe check, that, this, and all. For even I've added a slide called reality check. Okay, it's all all these fancy words. Try to avoid all these fancy words and then this accent and all miscellaneous things initially. Okay, being an aspirant, you should avoid which is all miscellaneous to your preparation. Maybe sometimes it's fine, but don't make it as a habit. All right. So this one is your reality check. What you have to do regularly. Your daily homework is like that. Homework or your daily practice sets. Synonyms and antonyms. Synonyms means the words which are going to make a similar sense, and antonyms means opposite words. All right, which you will be knowing it already, I believe. So synonyms. 5 new synonyms and antonyms. Okay, every single day you have to learn 5 new synonyms and antonyms. All right, and 5 new idioms and phrases. 5 new phrasal verbs. Okay, I'll tell you how to do this in detail in upcoming classes, but for right now I wanted to say that every single day, like how you are updating your current affairs. Okay, you have to update your synonyms and antonyms, idioms and phrases, and phrasal verbs. Okay, because there are a lot of idioms and phrasal verbs and then synonyms and antonyms. You can't master everything, but at least by learning 5 each every day, you can have a good mastery or good command over the language. Clear? We'll be discussing it, like I'll be teaching you how to make word list and all, and then how to make a journal for idioms and phrases and everything. So I'll be teaching in upcoming classes, whereas for now, you have to learn all 5 new of these. Clear? So I'm really I'm really feeling happy interacting with you all guys. So I believe that if you have any questions, you can post it on the comment. Maybe if possible, I'll reply to you. Thank you so much. And then once again, it's really pleasant interacting with you all. Thank you.
पूरा वीडियो देखने के लिए डाउनलोड करें शौर्य और विवेक ऐप गूगल प्ले स्टोर से।